In this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor Kay Walker, Miss Erica Lanier, and Mr. Preston Stewart. And Mr. Stewart, let us continue our conversation with you by having you to give us some information in reference to the issue of discipline in the school setting, because I think that many of us recognize that there's quite a problem in terms of discipline in the system. And so let's talk about it from that perspective.
That's another area in which I'm very passionate about, is the fact that students are presenting certain types of behavior that they have to be disciplined and they have to be suspended from school. They put in school suspension. My concept is, and my theory is, that the average child who has been suspended from school or punished in any kind of way will have the attitude that I did the crime, I did the time, but your punishment didn't change my mind. So in some way, the school system has to convince that child that he is tomorrow's America and that the discipline problems he presents in school is standing in his way of his economics in terms of him being able to support himself in a way that's fruitful for him. All the children have a dream, and I think the first step is that each child in school should be helped and convinced in what his goal is. He should decide whether he's going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, even a mechanic, and have a goal in school. And when he acts up in school, let him know he's threatening the economics of his survival to the standpoint that, and once you convince a child of that he's, and show him that it's his profit. It profits him to behave a certain way in school to his advantage, to have a certain attitude. And let him know that his attitude determines his altitude. And that you do certain things in the school that's uplifting, that's motivating, and inspiring.
Mr. Lanier, when you think about the metropolitan school system and you think in terms of being a female, let's look at it from a female's perspective. What are some of the issues in the system within the framework of what we're talking about today? What are some of the issues in the system that young females are concerned about or should be concerned about? How does that work?
I think a big factor, and especially since the Metropolitan Nashville Public School Board, as recently as this year, has updated policies on zero tolerance. And with the recent announcement that they're going to open up Twitter and these other elements, no one is looking at social media and how detrimental it is to all of our youth, but especially our young ladies. Bullying is totally different than when we were in school and they pulled our pigtails or, or pushed us or maybe tripped us. There are some very nasty things that are communicated about these young ladies and to these young ladies. And sadly, you know, we're hearing, you know, more, you know, attempts of suicide, and also, young ladies are not realizing that things that they may do at social media today, just as if you robbed a bank, will follow you in essence in the future. I have a friend who deals with student aid, and she said that one of the first things they do before they decide whether or not they're going to give a student any type of financial aid is they go out on social media to see what type of student this is. So you could be a straight A student, never got in trouble, but because of one single misjudgment on social media, you know, be passed over for financial aid, for a job, or numerous other things.
You know, Pastor, I think that that's one of the things that we rarely think about in terms of how detrimental some of this can be to our young people. And
Absolutely. You know, Dr. Haney, here's what we want to really have the Metropolitan Nashville Public School system feel. We want them to feel the presence of the Educational Committee of the NAACP as well as the full backing of the NAACP when it comes to and relates to our children's education. We have an expectation, Dr. Haney, that if a person is in the school system as an educator, we have an expectation that when the parents send that child into that school system, that their child is being educated, that their child is being treated right, their child is being treated fairly, and being treated with a level of professionalism. We have an expectation that the principals in the system, when it comes to this zero tolerance thing, that they exercise more flexibility than they're exercising instead of just booting the children out of the school system as a whole, you know, in terms of, and rather than trying to find a way to teach them. Well, Mr. Stewart talks very well about this character education. So if we got zero tolerance and you got the possibility, the potential of character education, which is active in some school systems, I think in Texas, Houston and stuff like that. But why not here in Metro? These are things that we want to see implemented within the Metro Nashville Public School system, because we want to be able to find a way to properly educate our children, and we want them to be educated by trained professionals who's going to act in a professional manner. It's not going to be disrespectful toward our children and the like, because if those things are happening, rest assured that the NAACP, we're looking, we're watching, we're going to be at your meetings, we're going to be in your face, we're going to be where we need to be so that we can guarantee that a child, a mother who sends her child, a father who sends his child to the school system, that they can have a reasonable assurance that when they go off to work and when they retrieve their child in the evening, their child has been exposed to an environment that cares, concern, and is properly educating that child. And we're not settling for anything less than that. This is what we expect, this is what we're moving toward, and this is what we're going to accomplish in this situation.
very good. Mr. Stewart, we've got about 3 minutes. Let's start off simply by summarizing some of the things that you would like to see done in reference to what we're talking about, and then allow Ms. Lanier to continue on, and then we'll wrap it up for the day.
We also hear a lot of comments about when young people come to the school environment, that a lot of behavior stems from parenting. And there's an implication in terms of imposing the idea that parents need to have parenting sessions and so forth and so on like that. I would venture to say that any parent, you can convince them they're not a good parent, no matter what kind of parenting they are and what kind of parenting style they have. But to involve the parent in doing some things that would be conducive to helping that child have behavior in school that is allows him to matriculate in a positive way. In other words, have his dinner ready when he's home. Be able to provide a quiet place for him to study, and encourage your child, uplift your child, inspire your child, and motivate your child to feel that that education is very important in his life. In other words, when you do that, then you're going to realize some gains in your investment as your child.
Mr. Lanier, what do you think about that in terms of what can be done?
I think that, of course, all of us need to be constructive in our input in terms of children, But I think also it's important that as taxpayers and voters, that we voice and hold accountable the administration that is duly responsible for educating all of our children.
Especially as voters. And I think that all of us would agree that there is a political element within the school system in a real sense, Common Core and et cetera and et cetera. And I would imagine that each of you would encourage more people to participate and find out exactly what's going on in reference to Common Core and to try to do our best in terms of making it viable in a real sense for the children not only African Americans, but the children that are served by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. 10 seconds, over the last 10 seconds, we've got 10 seconds. Mr. Stewart, give us a statement in 10 seconds. Ms. Lanier will also do the same thing. He will do the same, and I'm going to wrap it up for today.
We've got to convince our young people that they are tomorrow's America, and that they must be serious about their education, and that they must try to make their endeavors to do the best they can to the highest of their ability.
Ms. Lanier?
It takes $9,200 a year to educate a child. It takes $23,000 to house an inmate. We need to focus on being success stories, not statistics.
Very good. And so cost effectiveness has a very important part in this. And of course, let me thank the three of you for coming by and giving us that excellent information. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning. Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is Peace Ambassadors USA. And we have to talk about Peace Ambassadors USA, Mr. Arafat, Mr. Arafat, who is the Executive Director of Peace Ambassadors USA, as well as the founder of that organization. Mr. YSArafat. And of course, Mr. Arafat, let me welcome you to the show this morning and to tell you how delighted we are to have you with us and to talk about what I consider to be a very, very important topic, and that is peace.
Absolutely.
And I think that you've got a program that you call Peace Ambassadors USA that you'd like to talk to us about this morning. But before we get into that, Mr. Arafat, let's see if we could get from you some information about your background, your education, and some of your experiences. And then we'll, by the end of this segment, we'll have an opportunity to talk about the organization itself, Peace Ambassadors USA.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and the pleasure is all mine. My name is Yasser Saleh Arafat. I was born in Yemen originally. I came as a teenager to Brooklyn Heights, New York. And in '95, I came to Nashville, Tennessee, and it's been home since. I worked at the Metropolitan Public Schools as an ESL parent liaison for a few years. And then I became the Director of Education and board member of the Islamic Center of Nashville, the one on 12th Avenue, until 2010. We established another Islamic center called the Islamic Center of Tennessee, and I was one of the main founders and vice president. And then 2012, we started the initiation and the beginning of the establishment of Peace Ambassadors USA. I have my educational backgrounds. I have an undergraduate degree from Middle Tennessee State University in political science, actually pre-law. And I have a master in Islamic studies, and planning to start my doctorate in Vanderbilt for political science and also JD, because I have a pre. And basically, that is kind of what I do. It's I go and give lectures in colleges, universities, using my background in Middle East, or whether in the United States, in religion and politics. We use the degree in politics basically to talk about politics in the Middle East, and we use the degree of Islamic studies to talk about interfaith dialogues and programs, trying to reach out. We go to churches, we go to colleges, we go to schools, we invite people and churches to our mosques, and that's basically with the background of education. My plan is to finish the doctorate and again use it in the same way of reaching out to the public, whether here or overseas. The religious background gave me the chance to also become as we call in Arabic, khatib. I give Friday sermons. I give it here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I give it in different states. Every Friday you'll see me traveling to one state, and I do it as a volunteer basically. I'm not going to qualify myself and go and say I am an imam. That is not what I would call myself, but I would call myself as a religious educator and a communicator. Also, my involvement in the community for the last 17, 18 years gave me that leverage to know what the needs are. So I became a community developer. I help those who want to establish institutions, whether in the state or outside the state. So there is a group of individuals who would like to start a religious institution or a non-religious institution, a non-profit, since we studied that. I go and help them, again, volunteering. That's basically
well, you know, the important thing here, I think, is that you've been involved in trying to create a situation to bring peace among people for a long time, I would imagine. And out of this came the organization Peace Ambassadors USA. Now, excuse me, let's start off. We've got about a minute before the end of this segment, but sort of give us an overview of what that organization is about. And when we come back after this commercial break, we'll allow you to go deeper into the organization.
Absolutely. Well, it's basically an American Islamic outreach. Muslims, Christians, Jews, and others need to start learning about each other from each other rather than from Van Damme and Chuck Norris movies, and as you know what I mean. It's an establishment that will bring people together it will facilitate and foster a better communication and a better interfaith dialogue. So
Very
that is
good.
basically-
And of course, we're going to take our first commercial break, and we're going to take this first commercial break, and we'll be back with you following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Mr. Arafat, who has given us some information in reference to an organization that he has founded called Peace Ambassadors USA. And Mr. Arafat, let me welcome you back to the second segment of the show for today. I think I might have said the third segment, but through the second segment of the show for today, and to let you have about 6 or 8 minutes to talk about this organization that you are the founder of, as well as the executive director, and give us some idea in terms of what you expect to accomplish and how that idea came to you, and et cetera, all in 8 minutes.
Yes. Basically, after 9/11, it was a changing factor to a lot of people. It really taught us the essence and the importance of communication. We remember before 9/11, we used to go to churches and colleges and reach out and do interfaith programs. And after 9/11, a lot of members of my community were really afraid of what the consequences would be. But the amusing thing that happened is that we had a lot of cooperation and solidarity from the community, where we had the front door of our Islamic center full of flowers and roses and greeting cards standing by us and acknowledging that we had nothing to do with 9/11. Now, that was the beginning of what made me really think about this project. But really, what brought it up to the time for it to be initiated was in 2008. I was an undergraduate student at Middle Tennessee State University, and we had a class of English literature. And the professor, and this is what I do usually, I always reach out, go to school, and whenever I meet a professor, I give him some information about my background, my history, and this is what I'm used to do. So I gave it to him, and the next class, he said, "Mr. Arafat, can I have a few minutes?" I said, of course. So he started asking me questions, and I answered those questions. I was pleased that he did. Second class, Mr. Arafat, can you got a few more minutes? I said, of course. And basically, every class, we sit down for 5-10 minutes to talk about Middle East, religion, and on. I was surprised that in the middle of the midterm exam, he chose one of the topics which we talked about, which was women in Islam. I was so pleased that he did. And I wanted to give the presentation about it, but someone else ended up taking it. I said, well, that is what happened. When the time came for that presentation to take place, the person who took over this topic stood up, but didn't do a good job, basically. And instead of talking about women in Islam, that person talked about women in Saudi Arabia. So the professor said, stop. I mean, I asked you to write a paper about women in Islam, not women in Saudi Arabia. And where you got your information from? He said, from the internet. Well, anything you get from the internet is something that you take as face value. you're a person who about to graduate and you need to, you know, exert some more efforts to verify what you get. So he asked the person to rewrite the paper, but he did something that really was the beginning of the idea of Peace Ambassador. He stood up and said, well, first of all, you need to rewrite the topic. Second, for your information, women in Islam were given their rights 1,400 years ago. Rights that only were given to you 60 years ago, and you're still fighting for it. You need to learn to understand and differentiate between what some Muslims do and what their religion teaches. Now, that was very touching to me. And that's when the light bulb came to my head. I said, well, what about if I start a program to reach out to professors, to churches, to teachers, and try to educate them about the real teaching of Islam, not what they see on TV and other places. And that's what the idea of Peace Ambassador. So we went ahead in April of 2012. It took time because I was so busy with the project before that, which is the Islamic Center of Tennessee, and I was busy before that with the Islamic Center of Nashville. So it became, a dream, a life dream. Took a while to be.
It took a while.
It took a while, and it was accomplished. Thank God for it. So we signed up, and we started. Now, at the beginning, we used one of our mosques. Still continuing to do visitations, visit churches and stuff. But what ends up happening, we needed a place because the dream is big. We want to have our own radio station. We want to have our own IMAX theater. We want to have our own programs where we're going to be providing free Arabic classes, free English classes, free Spanish classes, free legal consultations, free domestic violence consultations, soup kitchens. We want to have our own free legal consultations and all these things. We want to show the community the true face of our religion through interaction and services. See, this is something that I always say to my brothers. We talk a lot, but when the time comes for action, we don't do enough action. We need to change that. We need to get out of that box of self-imposed isolation as a community and start reaching out to the people around us. I'll give you an example. I went to a church a few months ago in a nearby state of Nashville. And usually before I go to a church, I check the background of the church, what kind of denomination, even the age difference and male or female. It helps to cater the speech to fit your audience.
Very good.
I didn't have the time to do so. So I said, okay, I'll just go. And when I got there, usually I start by cracking a joke. And my name is really cracks a joke. My name is YSArafat, a well-known name, yes, no relationship. And that's what I do. I say, well, thank you very much for inviting me. Salam, shalom, peace. My name is YSArafat, no relationship to the Palestinian leader. Usually people laugh. That church, nobody laughed. I said, oh my God, what I got
Very
So
good.
right away I switched the style of approach. So I said, first, thank you for inviting me. Second, I got a question. It's a silly question, but please bear with me. Who of you know where did Jesus Christ come from? And of course, they all raise their hands. Where from? Jerusalem. I said, correct, where is Jerusalem? I said, the Middle East. I said, wonderful, wonderful. Now, where do you think I come from? Probably from the Middle East. I said, correct. Now, let me ask you this question. Do you really think that Jesus Christ, who came from the Middle East, will most likely look like me or you? And the atmosphere completely changed. I said, the reason I'm saying this is just in case there is any kind of prejudice, please remove it and listen to us. That is the message of Peace Ambassadors, reaching out, bringing people together, educating about ourselves from each other rather than from someone else.
Very good. And of course, you started this organization in
April 2012.
2012, and,
Yes.
And the organization is growing now, and you're reaching out. Are you the only person that's involved in that organization, or have you got a core of
No, we have a board. We have the executive committee. We have a board of directors. And by the way, we purchased the building. We are at the beginning. We're about to have an initial opening this Saturday, the 22nd of March.
Very good. And of course, we're going to take our second commercial break, and then we're going to come back and talk. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome to the final segment of the show for today. The name of the topic for today is Peace Ambassadors USA, and we're fortunate to have with us the founder and executive director of Peace Ambassador USA, Mr. YSArafat, who has given us some information about his background and the founding of this organization. Now, Mr. Arafat, let's look at some of the issues that I'm sure that your organization has had to deal with dealing with the Middle East. And let's talk about what you might consider some of the most important issues in the Middle East over the next 8 or 10 minutes.
Basically, if you look at the foreign policy of the United States of America in the Middle East, I mean, from study and from reading and from understanding the issue, you find there are two major things that we deal with in the Middle East: oil and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. These are the two major things. Oil is being secured. We have good relationship with the region, at least the governments of the region, and so we have a good flow, so we're not going to have to go through the embargo of the 70s. And second is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and this is, to be honest with you, is the crucial, the most important issue in that part of the world. I see our foreign policy of our government failing, and it has been failing for a long time. It's unfortunate to say that. And it's failing because there is no genuineness involved. Once we become a just broker to reach peace, it'll become much easier for us to bring people on the table. When we are just and we are equal to both parties, things will take place, peace will materialize. Without justice, equality, respect, peace cannot be in place. You can't expect to come to take over my land, prosecute me, kill me, starve me, and then have peace my way or the highway. I believe that as the greatest country in the world, that greatness comes with a huge responsibility. Whether we like it or not, we do have a responsibility in that part of the world, because we are one of the reasons that we are the main supporter of the state of Israel, basically. So we should have some kind of leverage if we want to use it. I understand AIPAC and other lobbyists do have an impact in Congress and the White House, but still, the national interests of the United States of America should come first before any other national interests of any other entities. I believe, this is what I believe, and I'm sure there are many people out there who believe such a thing, that 9/11, for example, is a direct result of our foreign policy in that part of the world.
9/11?
9/11, I do believe that very, very strongly. Why do I believe this? If you look at what the terrorists do and say, they do use the Palestinian cause to recruit terrorists, to do a lot of things. And that Palestinian cause and dilemma really does resonate in the hearts of the Arabs. There are 300 million Arabs who do not like the state of Israel. They consider it to be a cancer in the heart of the Arab nation. Go back to history. That's not the case. A lot of people think that, oh, the Arabs and the Jews have been fighting each other for thousands of years. That's not correct. The Arabs and the Jews are cousins. The Arabs are the descendants of Ishmael, the Jews are the descendants of Isaac, and both are the children of Abraham, peace be upon them all. So that is, you look, again, near history, 18th century, 19th century, when the Israelites and the Jews were put in ghettos in Europe, their cousins welcomed them with open arms. So they came, they settled in Turkey, they settled in Yemen, in Morocco, and other places. So there is no hate relationship. There is, as a matter of fact, there is a beautiful organization, I think of Hasidic Jews, who stand up and say the truth as is. They said that we used to babysit for the Arabs, and they babysit for us when we used to go to the Sabbath. That's kind of the relationship they used to have until the Zionist movement came and whatever happened. So I believe that as a greatest country in the world, with our President Obama, who we respect, even though we disagree with a lot of his policies, especially in the Middle East, I believe there is a chance for peace. I went to a synagogue a while back to give a talk, and I stood up and I said, I want to start an experiment with you, my friends. Close your eyes and visualize the following. Two little babies, 9 months old, both naked, both with a bullet in the middle of their chest. They're both dead. They're being washed, cleaned, and prepared to be buried. Now, one of them is an Arab and the other one is a Jew. Would you please tell me which one is? Which is which? You cannot.
No.
You can't. These both innocent babies being killed by bullets. Who's to blame? The babies? No, us. What have we done to reach out? If we do not become a just broker and reach out and use the leverage that we have against Israel and bring them together to the table for them to compromise and accept the UN resolution. And I don't know if you've read this, in 2002 in the Beirut summit, the Arab League, there was a Saudi initiative which told Israel, accept the UN resolutions, go back to the 1967 borders, allow the Palestinians to have their own states, and we will normalize all relationships with the state of Israel. We will recognize the state of Israel, we'll open borders, and we'll have just a regular relation just like any other state. Question is, why didn't Israel accept such a thing? They say the Arabs don't want a peace, the Arabs don't want peace. That is not true. It's unfortunately, that is not true. But what we need to do right now is to ask our government, and in particular our President Obama, to really make better choices for our own safety in this country. There is a lot of resentment, and if we do not reach the peace of hands, and that's what we're going to try to do in Peace Ambassadors, reach out to people here and over there and tell them, hey, as people, we could create a powerful segment of society where we could influence the decisions that are made in the government. We want to live in peace, but we want to also let others live in peace. If we come into the Palestinians and say, as American people, which I believe American people, I was in Kuwait last year and I said something on the radio. I said, American people are the most generous, most God-loving people I've ever seen in my life. And the person who was given the interview was like, you sure? I said, yes, I am one of them. So again, they don't know us like we don't know them. And through these kind of reach out programs and communication and peace ambassador programs, I think we could foster a better way of reaching out and getting to know each other. I was one day in the church, and one of the people there asked me, Mr. Arafat, why do you guys worship statue? See, they think that Muslims worship a statue, his name is Allah, and that is the moon god. And that's why we have the crescent on the top of the buildings. It has nothing to do, we don't have such a thing as the moon god. So I don't blame them, to be honest with you.
Because they don't know.
They don't know. I blame myself and the Muslims in general. What have we done to reach out? When was the last time you knocked the door of your neighbor and told them, hey, I'm a Muslim, would you like to come for dinner? When was the last time you talked to your classmate or co-worker or whatever? A lot of Muslims shy away, and again and again and again, I do blame myself and my community for not reaching out more, and we are planning to change that.
And so you believe that the organization that you are the founder and the executive director, the Peace Ambassadors in USA, can play a significant role in terms of reaching out and making people understand both sides of any kind of question that might be raised dealing with any problems that you might have in the Middle East.
Absolutely.
Is that what we're saying?
Absolutely. What we're going to do, we're going to start with our own neighbors next door. That's what we start building, those kind of good relationships. You can't just reach out to next city when you have problems with your own people next door. You got to start with your own, those who are around you. We're going to start by reaching out, educating, creating these programs, having something called intellectual club, where we bring professors and we bring doctors and other people with professions to give lectures and talk from all faiths and backgrounds. We will host that, and we will help and facilitate such action. We believe by continuing to do such things will change. Might not happen tomorrow, but you got to start somewhere.
It's better.
Look at the civil rights movement in the United States. Look at all these movements that started. They didn't just happen overnight. There were a lot of sacrifice and a lot of time that took place. But again, this is the land of dreams, and we believe we can accomplish
it. And so you do believe that you've got an organization that people can buy into, and it would do quite a bit in terms of at least moving toward bringing some kind of understanding between peoples in the Middle East.
And we believe that anyone could become an ambassador regardless of your faith and background.
And let me thank you, and let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning. because I understand that all-night session, not quite recently, did. Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic today is the politics and consequences of climate change. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the politics and consequences of climate change, Professor David Padgett from Tennessee State University. Dr. Padgett, let me welcome you to the show this morning and to tell you how delighted we are to have you here, because I think the topic that we're going to talk about is a very, very important topic, and quite a number of folks are involved in it one way or the other. And so let's have you to start off by giving us some information. You've been with us before, but there might be some members of our audience who might not know that much about you. And so give us some information about your background, your education, and some of your experiences, and then by that time we should be able to get into that second segment. Then we'll talk about politics and consequences of climate change. But during this first segment, let's talk about David Padgett and some of the things that you've been involved in, and et cetera.
Okay, well, I earned my undergraduate degrees in geography and geology from Western Kentucky University, and I worked for the federal government for a while as a physical scientist. And then I did my graduate degrees, master's and PhD, in physical geography and geology and environmental engineering. And so I guess my academic training is primarily in what we would call Earth System Sciences. I helped to start the environmental geography program at Austin Peay State University. I also taught in the environmental studies program at Oberlin College. And following Oberlin College, I came to Tennessee State University 15 years ago. And I've been teaching weather and climate at Tennessee State University. Weather and climate is part of Earth System Science. For the past 10 years, I've taught weather and climate. I've been a member and participant of the American Meteorological Society's climate diversity and climate weather projects, the objective of which is to expand the numbers and increase the numbers of people of color, specifically African Americans and people at HBCUs, in studying climate science and weather studies. So I've been in that program funded by the American Meteorological Society for the past 10 years. I'm also a certified weather spotter, so I'm one of the people that goes out and tries to warn the community of tornadoes and hail and other violent weather when it comes into our area.
Now, when you say that you're a certified weather spotter, now what does that mean? I mean, to be certified in reference to that.
Well, the National Weather Service periodically has trainings for anybody, any citizen who is interested in being out there on the ground looking for tornadoes especially. Tennessee is one of the places in the United States where you're most likely to be killed by a tornado. We were the #1 state until Alabama surpassed us a couple of years ago. So tornadoes can be very deadly events here. And even though a lot of news stations have radar, radar only detects tornadoes that are very close to the radar stations. The farther you get away from radar stations, you really need to have people and human beings on the ground with eyeballs to see these tornadoes. So even with all this technology that we have, we still need humans, such as myself, to spot the tornadoes and report in to the weather stations, hey, you know, there's a tornado on the ground in Dixon County, or there's a tornado on the ground here, that may or may not even show up on radar.
And so in a real sense, you go out when there's a danger of a storm, and you go out and you search and you call back in, and now that's sort of a dangerous kind of situation because it means that you come put yourself in the line of these storms and tornadoes. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not a storm chaser. I'm not a tornado chaser. If I happen to be at work at Tennessee State University and a storm is coming, then I'll look out. You know, I'll take cover, but I will watch the skies. If I'm at home or wherever I happen to be, I'll be watching the skies. And since we have cellular phones now, I would be able to call in and say I'm a certified spotter, and here's what I'm seeing occurring on the ground at this location. And then that way, the warning would go out that not only do we see a possible tornado using the radar, but there's someone who sees the actual tornado on the ground.
And by being a certified spotter, it means that gives you more credibility when you call and say and announce that you are a certified spotter.
Oh yes, I've been through training. Not just anybody can call in. It has to be someone who's been through the training.
With the experience and et cetera, know what they're talking about.
Exactly.
And that when the people on the other end receive it, that has great credibility being certified. Other than if I were to call and say it looks like we might have a tornado over here, I'm not certified. They probably wouldn't pay.
Yeah, you wouldn't have that. There's one phone number that we call.
Okay, but we'll go take this first commercial break, and then we'll get back into, and we'll have our first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Professor David Padgett from Tennessee State University, and the topic is the politics and consequences of climate change. Dr. Padgett, before we had our first commercial break, we promised that we'd give you an opportunity to talk about what we consider to be the politics and consequences of climate change. And I think the reason we decided to entitle this The Politics and Consequences of Climate Change is because quite recently there was an all-night session in the United States Senate dealing with this issue of climate change, and we therefore felt that it was time to again have you in to talk to our audience again about what it means, what climate change is, and what the politics of it, and some of the consequences of the climate change. And so from that perspective, let's do it that way.
Okay, well first I'll start off defining some terms. First, some people use the terms weather and climate interchangeably. Weather refers to the atmospheric conditions in a very localized place, such as Nashville, but climate is over a much wider area and usually over a much longer period of time. So when we talk about climate, we're not talking about atmospheric conditions right here, right now. We're talking about what have the atmospheric conditions been over the past 100 years or 1,000 years or even 10,000 years. The next couple of terms I want to define are climate change and then global warming. Global warming is the more controversial of the two because that means that apparently the Earth's average atmospheric temperatures are warming, which they absolutely are. But when you start to say global warming, people start to get, that's a little scary for some people. So oftentimes people use the term climate change because the climate is constantly changing. The Earth has been through several ice ages, so the Earth's temperature has gotten warmer, and it's gotten cooler, and then warmed up, and then the ice melted, and so on and so forth. Now, what's controversial about climate change and/or global warming is the cause of it. Now, there is no debate over whether or not the Earth's average temperature has been warming. If you look at all the evidence, if you look at the past couple of decades, we've had the warmest decades, warmest months we've ever had in recorded history. So the debate is not over whether the climate is getting warmer or not. We definitely know that. The question is it human caused or is it natural? Now, if it's human caused, that means that we humans are releasing greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. What carbon dioxide does is it absorbs long-wave radiation, and it's that long-wave radiation that warms the Earth's atmosphere. So in theory, the more carbon dioxide there is in the atmosphere, the warmer the atmosphere is going to become. We humans put carbon dioxide in the atmosphere through burning fossil fuels. We drive our cars, we burn coal. About half of our electricity is produced by burning coal. So we engage in a lot of activities that pump carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The question is, are we pumping so much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that we're causing the climate to change, that we're putting so much extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that it's absorbing excessive amounts of long-wave radiation and pushing our temperatures higher and higher, which eventually will melt the polar ice caps, which is melting glaciers, which will cause sea level rise and any number of consequences. There are some relationships between climate change and weather, such as hurricanes. Hurricanes are predicted to become more powerful. They might not become more frequent, but definitely as the ocean waters warm, we might see years such as year 2005, we had hurricanes Rita and Wilma and of course Katrina, which were some of the most powerful hurricanes and the largest hurricanes we've ever seen in recorded history. But the question comes in to play as to whether humans are significant enough factors on this planet to cause the climate to change. Because, like I said before, when humans weren't on the Earth warmed up, cooled down, we didn't have anything to do with it. One volcano can put enough greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, it will be an equivalent amount of humans putting that amount in the atmosphere through our activities. One volcano. One volcanic eruption historically has changed the climate for years afterwards. We humans aren't necessarily able to do that. Now, what it all boils down to is money. If we humans are causing the climate to change and of course causing global warming, the way that we mitigate that is with pollution control, is that we pay for devices that will keep greenhouse gases from escaping. Those devices are very expensive. For example, there's a coal plant right here in Gallatin, Tennessee that's being retrofitted so that it will not produce as much greenhouse gas. For that one plant, the retrofit is $1 billion. That's $1 billion for one plant in Little Gallatin, Tennessee. So just think about the cost
all
across
over
the nation. We're talking about amounts of money that are unfathomable. Big business and industry, they do not want to pay that money if it's a natural cause. They don't want to find out from a scientist 20 years from now, oh, you know all those billions of dollars you spent? We were mistaken. This is all natural. The Earth is warming up all by itself. We humans don't have anything to do with it. So, and the money in politics comes into play in that, of course, the United States We are a massive producer of fossil of carbon dioxide. But there are other countries such as China and India that are right now having their own industrial revolutions. They're starting to get more involved in manufacturing, less involved in agriculture, and they're starting to pump tons and tons and tons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And they don't want to slow down. They don't want to slow down any more than we wanted to slow down during our industrial revolution here. And so they're less apt on the global scale to be involved in anything that's going to sound like pollution control, because pollution control costs money, pollution control cuts into profits. And so the United States is sort of caught in the middle, because certainly we like to see these normally lower income countries develop, and we like their products. I mean, we get lots and lots of products from China. We are very much involved in business in India, but at the same time, that progress is causing pollution. And you can see what's happening in Beijing right now, where they're hardly able to see because the air is so bad.
Okay, we're going to take this second commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.